This is a story about the importance of truly knowing people. You may think you have a good read on someone, but in reality, you have no idea what they are thinking or what they are capable of doing. This happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The struggle of everyday life was starting to wear thin on me and my girlfriend Stacy. We both worked stressful, demanding jobs that left us exhausted by the end of every week, and the cold winter weather was only making things feel more bleak and repetitive. One evening, as we were sitting on our small couch wrapped in heavy blankets, Stacy suggested that we rent a cabin out in the woods just to escape for a few days. Naturally, I loved the idea, but I was not exactly rolling in cash at the time. Budgeting for a trip like that seemed almost impossible with our current savings. So she floated another idea. My best friend Randy and his girlfriend were very close to us, so she suggested that they come with us to make it like a couple's getaway. It would be incredibly fun hanging out, and more importantly, they would be able to pay for half the trip, making it affordable for everyone. I loved the idea, and when I presented it to Randy the next day, he was on board immediately. Since we were taking this trip in the middle of winter, we wanted a cabin with a fireplace and somewhere that would just give us that warm and cozy feeling. Stacy spent hours searching online and finally found a beautiful secluded place. We booked it for the end of that month. We were so excited and started planning meals, grocery lists, and other fun stuff to do at the cabin to pass the time. But then, less than a week until the trip, everything fell apart. Randy and his girlfriend broke up. The breakup was incredibly sudden, and it did not end well at all. It was loud, messy, and final. Stacy and I tried to figure out if we should offer Randy his money back, or just not say anything. We really did not have the funds to do this trip alone, but it also did not feel fair to make Randy pay for half a trip that he was not even going on anymore. I called Randy to talk about it, and he told me not to worry about it. I offered several times to give him his money back, but he insisted that we still go and have a romantic getaway on his dime. When I told Stacy the news, she was excited and we started getting pumped for our trip alone. But the next day, which was only a few days before the trip, Randy called me again. This time, his tone was completely different. He told me that he had found someone else to go on the trip with us. I told him that I was not crazy about that idea, and when Stacy heard about it, she agreed with me. We did not really want to travel into the middle of the woods with some random rebound girl that even Randy barely knew. I tried explaining to him that travel compatibility is a real thing, and that we knew absolutely nothing about this woman. Randy begged, and after a few minutes of pleading, he talked me into it. He offered to pay for my entire portion of the trip as an incentive, and he promised that his new girlfriend would be cool, and that we would absolutely love her. Stacy and I were still not happy about it. We knew the trip had the potential to end in an awkward disaster. That alone would be a horror story. It took a little while, but we decided that we were going to make the best of this situation. The weekend finally arrived, and we carpooled to the cabin together in my truck. Randy introduced us to his new girlfriend, Lucy. She seemed sweet and even a little quiet. Stacy and I are not shy people, and we can be loud and annoying when we get excited. We spent most of the drive trying to get to know Lucy, but she was not very talkative at all. I barely knew what her voice sounded like by the time we arrived at the cabin. The trip started fine. We all got settled in, and we were just hanging around the fireplace chatting. Stacy and I love playing card games, but we especially love playing Uno. We just love its simplicity, and we could play it just about anywhere and anytime. So Stacy suggested that we play Uno, and everyone was on board. Even Lucy seemed like she was finally starting to come out of her shell. But during the Uno game, we witnessed our very first red flag of the weekend. When Stacy called Uno, indicating that she only had one card left, Lucy looked over at her. With rage and anger in her normally mousy voice, she started to rip into Stacy. We all kind of laughed at first, thinking she was kidding around and just playing a bit dramatically, but that made it so much worse. Lucy started to go completely insane. She was screaming that Stacy must have been cheating, and there was no way she could have only had one card left. Stacy was trying to defend herself, and Lucy just kept acting like a toddler, screaming about her cheating. I am not being sarcastic when I say she was screaming about a simple game of Uno with people she barely knew. Even if Stacy was cheating, which she was not, this was an outrageous overreaction. When Randy tried to calm her down, she threw all her cards in the air and left the living room. He apologized to us and we just laughed it off, trying to keep the peace. Later night, Stacy made dinner, and Lucy seemed completely fine now. It was almost like she did not throw a massive temper tantrum a few hours ago. This was red flag number 2. While we were eating, Lucy started to overshare details about her and Rye's personal time together. These were things you just do not say to others in public, like very private and personal things that I am not going to mention in the story for Rye's sake. I could tell he was incredibly embarrassed. I just kept trying to crack jokes and change the subject to literally anything else. Eventually, she stopped and the 4 of us did not do much for the rest of the evening. That night, Stacy woke me up in the middle of the night and told me to listen closely. I got up and I could hear Lucy and Randy arguing. I could not fully understand what they were saying, because the bedrooms were on opposite ends of the cabin and we had our door closed. I could just tell by the tone of the arguing and the sharp inflection in their voices that they were clearly fighting. The awkwardness of this was crazy, and we did not want to make Randy feel any worse than he already did. So, we pretended that we did not hear it, and we decided not to mention it the next day. The next morning and day were largely uneventful. Randy seemed distant, and we barely saw or heard from Lucy. It was not until that night that things got truly weird. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up to Randy standing directly over me in the dark. It scared the hell out of me. I asked him what he was doing, and he looked absolutely terrified. He asked if he could stay in our room tonight and if we could keep the door locked. I was confused and asked him if he could explain why. Apparently, he woke up during the night and Lucy was standing at the bottom of the bed, just staring at him in the darkness. When he asked what she was doing, she just shrugged and said that she was watching him sleep just in case. He said they stared at each other for a long moment, and then she just turned and walked out of the room. Several minutes later, she still did not return to the room. He decided to get up and go check on her to make sure she was okay. And that is when he noticed something on her side of the bed. He moved the blanket a little bit, and right there on the bed was a large knife. That is when he decided to sneak over to our room. He quietly walked through the dark cabin, trying not to make a single noise. When he got to the living room, he heard Lucy humming to herself and wandering around like she was almost dancing. He said it kind of looked like she was sleepwalking, but worse. When she was almost at our bedroom door, the floor creaked subtly, and she stopped humming. She turned in his general direction, and in an ominous voice, she said, "I see you." Randy said that it did not even look like she was looking at him, just in his direction. After that, she turned around and continued to hum and skip around the dark cabin. That is when he entered our room and locked the door. I was trying to process all of this, and at the same time Stacy woke up. We were in the middle of nowhere, so we did not really know what to do. Lucy could have very well just been in some sort of elaborate sleepwalking state, but I do not know if that explains the knife. While we were contemplating, we could still hear Lucy pacing around the cabin. A few minutes later, we heard the front door to the cabin slam shut. We opened the bedroom door and Lucy was not there. Randy looked out of the window and saw Lucy heading into the freezing cold forest, with just a t-shirt and a pair of shorts on. Randy ran to his bedroom and screamed because the knife was gone from the bed. Stacy said we had to go out and get her, and could not just let her wander in the woods in the middle of the night, especially if she was sleepwalking. Randy was terrified and wanted nothing to do with his new girlfriend. Stacy went back to her room and started putting on warm clothes and a jacket. Randy was pleading with her to just call a park ranger or something. I have known Randy my entire life, and I have never seen him this scared. During our brief discussion in the bedroom, we heard the cabin door open and close again. We all got quiet and listened intently. We heard Lucy stomping down the hall toward her and Rye's bedroom. She was still humming. We stayed in our bedroom that night and did not sleep at all. At 6 in the morning, we heard Lucy in the kitchen washing dishes. We all went out there and she greeted us like nothing was wrong. Stacy and I chalked this all up to Lucy just being a bit off, and Randy going through some of his own issues, since he had just broken up with his long-term girlfriend before this trip. Everything we experienced the night before was weird for sure, but it could be explained by sleepwalking or something like that. Randy was convinced that something darker was at play here, but Stacy dismissed it right away. She went to help Lucy clean, and I tried to console Randy the best I could before he went back to his bedroom. Not 2 minutes later, he texted me and told me to go to his bedroom right now and not to tell anyone. I went over there and he showed me something horrifying. While he was packing up his stuff, he moved Lucy's bag. When he set her bag down, a large knife fell out of the side. It was the same knife that Randy saw the night before. I could see and feel how scared Randy was. He put the knife back in her bag and waited in the living room for everyone else to be ready to leave. The drive home was full of intense tension. Just knowing that Lucy had that knife in her bag freaked me out. Thankfully, we made it home safe and physically unharmed. Randy ghosted Lucy after that, and she must not have cared because she never tried to get a hold of him either. Occasionally, Stacy will still try to find Lucy on social media, but she has never had any luck. She has even looked at inmate lockup records and still no Lucy. It is like there is no record of Lucy existing, making us feel like she was clearly using a fake name. But if that is the case, what did she want? I wonder if she intended to hurt Randy. Truly, I have no idea what to think about that weekend. The fact that she had the knife, and there is no record of this woman, just makes me think whoever she was, she had dark intentions. I guess it is good that for whatever reason she did not act on them. The last few years, I have really separated myself from the rest of the world. I have always been someone who likes to be alone, and I do not love the company of others, except for some very few people in my life. A few years ago, I was at the height of my introverted personality. I would go out of my way to find peace and quiet. During this time of my life, I would often find cabins and other secluded places to stay on the weekends whenever I had the funds to make it happen. That may seem ridiculous to some people, but my anxiety for just normal interactions with people was so bad at this point that I would go to those extreme lengths just to be alone. This extreme habit continued for about 2 years. During that time, something happened at one of my weekend cabin getaways that really freaked me out. The weekend started like any other one. I found a secluded cabin about 2 hours from home and made the trek out there. I usually would use that weekend time to hike, spend time outdoors, and mostly just catch up on reading. I love to read, and being out in the wilderness where it is quiet always helps me to relax and concentrate. I arrived Friday evening at the cabin, made a small dinner, read a few chapters of my book, and went to bed early. The next morning, I decided to take a long hike. I have always just found peace being outside in nature. Whether it is sunny, rainy, or even snowing, I just love being outside. While I was hiking through the woods, I could hear something behind me. It was the distinct sound of twigs and branches snapping. You could assume that it was just the sounds of nature, but it sounded almost too deliberate to be natural. I tend to be a bit irrational and highly anxious, so my mind went right away to somebody following me. But every time I turned around and scanned the dense surroundings, I was completely alone. There was nothing but trees and shadows. I kept hiking for a little while longer, but that feeling of paranoia just kept growing with every step I took. I planned on hiking a little further, but I decided to cut the hike short and head back to the house. I had gotten to a point where I was not even enjoying being outside anymore. That night was particularly rough on me. Maybe it was because of all the anxiety I was feeling on the hike earlier, but I just remember being incredibly sad and restless. I decided to have a drink to take the edge off, and that single drink quickly turned into a few drinks. Once I started to feel the drinks hitting my system, I felt a lot better, and all that anxiety from earlier slowly disappeared. I tried to read my book, but instead I just put on some music and started to vibe. Around 11 o'clock that night, I thought I heard a faint knock at the door. I turned the music off and made my way to the entryway. The front door was a heavy wooden door with 2 rectangular windows set into it. I looked outside into the dark and saw nothing, so I assumed it was just my mind playing tricks on me and walked away. But before I could even sit back down, I heard another distinct knock at the door. I went back over to look out, and this time, someone was actually standing there, but it was too dark to make out any specific details. Before I said anything, I turned on the front porch light, which mostly illuminated the man standing out there. He did not look scary or disheveled. In fact, it was the complete opposite of that. A clean-cut man with a suit was standing on the other side of the door. He was about 6 feet tall, had an athletic build, and was clean-shaven with a slicked-back haircut. This man was clearly out of place. He looked like he was ready for an important business meeting, not a nighttime walk in the middle of the woods. I could not figure out why a man in a full suit would randomly show up to a secluded cabin at 11 p.m. From my side of the door, I asked the man if he was okay and what he wanted. There was a weird and almost unnatural pause before the man answered. It was almost like he was processing what I was saying before he answered, like a computer trying to run a program. Then he finally answered and said that he was driving with his girlfriend earlier. He claimed that he had spent hours walking around looking for her after they got separated, and now he was completely lost. He asked if he could please come inside so he could call someone for help. On its own, this was alarming and deeply unsettling just because a random stranger had appeared at the door in the middle of the woods. But one of the most unsettling parts of this encounter was the absolute lack of any emotion in his voice. This did not sound like a man who was lost and missing his girlfriend. He sounded completely void of emotion, entirely flat. I told him to back away from the door and wait at the end of the long driveway, and that I would call someone for help. He paused again and looked around slowly. With that same lack of energy, he said that he really needed to come inside. He said something was outside, and if he did not get inside for help, he was going to be in deep trouble. The tension I felt at this moment is almost indescribable. I told him I was calling the police right now, and that he could either wait outside or leave, but I was absolutely not letting him inside the cabin under any circumstances. As I walked away from the door to grab my phone, I heard him say that he wanted to hide inside the cabin. He kept repeating that he was in trouble, and he needed to hide inside. I grabbed my phone, and that is when he started to aggressively pound on the heavy wooden door. I ran back to the door, and I started to scream some vulgar things at the man outside to get him to back off. In the middle of my rant, I stopped yelling because I suddenly heard the man laughing. This was by far the most emotion the man had shown. I looked out the window and the man had his face practically pressed up against the glass. His face was just inches away from mine, distorted and creepy. I nearly fell over from the shock of seeing him so close to me. In a calm, slow voice, he said, "Come on, Victor, just open the door already." Somehow this total stranger in a suit knew my actual name. I was frozen for a few seconds, unable to move, and then without thinking, I quickly dialed 911, and I told the dispatcher that I was staying at a cabin, and a strange man was trying to break in. As soon as I hung up the phone, I looked out the window and nobody was there. The porch was empty. For almost 15 minutes, I waited for the police to arrive, and I never once stopped looking out the window. During that time, I did not see any movement outside at all. Finally, a single patrol car pulled up, and when the officer got there, I opened the door and let him in quickly. I told the cop everything that had happened, and he seemed genuinely concerned and confused. He told me that none of the other surrounding residents had reported anything weird, and this was the first time he had ever gotten a call like this in this area. The cop was very nice and could tell that I was a complete nervous wreck. He suggested that I drive into town and stay at one of the hotels if I was still scared. I told him that I had been drinking and that I did not feel comfortable driving my car, but I also did not want to stay there alone. He was nice enough to offer to drive me into town himself. As we were walking to the patrol car, I heard the officer make a weird sound, almost like he was shocked by something. I asked what was wrong, and he pointed to the tires of my car parked in the driveway. My tires were completely deflated, and it looked like they had been deliberately slashed. I started to unravel a bit and panic, but the cop did a good job of keeping me as grounded as I could be. He drove me to a nearby hotel and stayed with me in the lobby until I could get in touch with my dad. I stayed in that hotel that night, and my dad came to pick me up in the morning and helped me sort out the details of getting my car towed. The owner of the cabin reached out to me 1,000,000 times to apologize, but I just did not care anymore. I wanted this entire experience to be over. I did not even ask for a refund. Some people have floated the idea to me that somehow the owner of the cabin was involved in this nightmare, or that the owner himself was the man in the suit, but I do not think so. The owner had a picture of himself on his profile, and the man in the suit looked absolutely nothing like this guy. I never got any answers, and I am sure I never will. I still get chills thinking about that night. Even seeing those stupid prism windows freaks me out. I hate that somewhere out there, this man is potentially still terrorizing people. About 6 months ago, my father passed away. I am not looking for any sympathy or anything like that. I did not have a good relationship with the man. He was not a bad guy, really. He just did not know how to be a proper father to me specifically. At a very young age, I realized that I was nothing like him. I knew I was not going to become the person he wanted me to be, and I know that bothered him deep down, even if it was just subconscious. Fast forward to 6 months ago when my father passed, and I was incredibly surprised to see that he left me his cabin in his will. I have had friends tell me that this was my father playing one last joke on me, but I do not think that is the case. I think he knew I would sell it, and I think that is what he wanted me to do, to have the money. After some of the boring paperwork and legal details, I was told that to sell the property, I needed to go and clean it up and maybe fix some of the minor things that needed work. I decided to use that as an excuse to stay at the cabin one last time. This was my own quiet way of saying a final goodbye to my father. When I arrived at the cabin, the first thing I noticed when I stepped through the door was the horrific smell. It smelled like death in there. And no, he did not pass away in the cabin. He actually had not been to the cabin in almost a year before he died. I looked around for any dead animals that might have crawled inside, but I think the place just stunk from years of not being cleaned properly and being shut tight. The next thing I noticed after the smell was that the cabin looked exactly how I remembered it looking when I was 10 years old. He still had the exact same setup, the same gross couches, the same wooden bookshelves. Literally everything was exactly the same. I spent a few hours downstairs deep cleaning every single inch of that place. Luckily, my father had fixed the roof a few years ago, so that was the one major thing I did not need to worry about. While I was going over my checklist of things I wanted and needed to do, I kept hearing weird noises coming from above me. It was the sound of rustling and movement. That is when I remembered that he had an attic in this cabin. Calling it an attic might be a stretch. It is really like a mix of an attic and a crawl space, almost like it does not know exactly what it wants to be. There is a back hallway in the cabin, and located on the ceiling in the back hall is a pull-down cord. When you pull the cord, the door opens, and one of those retractable wooden ladders comes down. I slowly started going up the ladder, and I was fully prepared to be attacked by a legion of raccoons or squirrels. Instead, I was instantly attacked by an even more foul smell than before. I started to cough uncontrollably from the horrible smell in the attic. After my coughing spell subsided, I looked around and was completely disgusted. There were cardboard boxes everywhere, but the worst part was that there was trash all over the place. I saw wrappers from food, empty beer cans, and just garbage scattered everywhere. I knew my dad was not the cleanest person, but I also did not think my dad was this messy and disgusting. I picked up some of the trash, but I only stayed up there for a little bit. The smell was too horrible, and I was exhausted from cleaning downstairs all day. I was not mentally prepared to go through all the boxes and deal with the upstairs at that moment. I took out a bunch of trash and decided that I would finish cleaning the upstairs tomorrow. Not long after, I decided to go to bed. I put some of my clean sheets on his bed and slept in his old room. I woke up during the night because I thought I heard the sound of rustling again. I started to think that maybe the walls had some kind of animal infestation. That would explain why I kept hearing movement. And if animals were living in the walls, maybe animals were also dying in the walls, and that would explain the horrific smell. The only problem with my theory was that the sounds I kept hearing were clearly coming from directly above my head in the attic. Since I was not sleeping well, I decided to go check it out. When I got to the hall, I noticed the attic door latch was open, and the ladder was down. I thought that was weird, but totally possible I did not shut it all the way. I noticed another snack food wrapper on the ground at the base of the ladder. I could not believe there was more fresh trash. I picked it up, threw it away, and went to the living room to sit on the couch. It was pitch dark, and I knew I was not going to fall asleep again, so I turned on a small end table lamp. It had a low orange light, just enough so I did not have to sit in darkness. While I was sitting there, I looked over to the corner of the room and saw a blanket covering something next to the old recliner. I did not remember any blanket being there earlier when I cleaned the downstairs. I slowly approached it and froze in my tracks. From a couple of feet away, I saw the bottom of a dirty leather boot protruding from the blanket. I stared at it as the entire blanket shifted. It was clear someone was hiding under there. I stood watching, seeing the blanket rise and fall from whoever was breathing underneath. I did not want to find anything else out. I retreated, grabbed my keys, and sprinted right outside. I ran to the car, started it, and backed down the driveway. While backing out, I saw a scary-looking mangy man run out the front door. He did not chase my car, but stood in front of the cabin watching. I called the local police and reported this. They told me that because my father had not lived there for a long time, a squatter had moved in for warmth and had been living in the attic for at least a year. By the time the police showed up, the man was gone. I never took another single step inside that cabin. I hired someone to clean it out and then sold it as is. I hope the new owners never have to deal with that surprise visitor. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of today's episode in the comments. And remember, we have a whole playlist of true crime episodes ready for you to binge right now. Until next time, see ya.